Welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast, and I'm totally pumped up today because I just met an amazing couple. Shannon and Dan Smith are relationship experts, and they've got a phenomenal story, very similar to mine, and a lot of you out there who are watching and listening. If you've ever had bumps and obstacles in your relationship to pure connection, you're going to love this episode. So one of the things that was so interesting to me is that when I met them, Shannon and Dan were telling me a little bit about Shannon was really thirsty and dying inside. She was one of these type A overachiever personalities, and it was just killing her essence as a woman. And I think that was kind of like the basis for all of the work they've done together, and they have come out the other end, and it's going to benefit all of you out there. So Shannon and Dan, welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. We appreciate you giving us opportunity to just share with you and the people that you are that are near and dear to you. So thank you.
My pleasure. Very much. So tell me a little bit about your story. Just give us a little bit more from what I just started.
You want me to start?
How about it?
All right. Well, the first thing that's unique is Dan and I met when we were really young. And we've been together for now 26 years. Okay. And where we're at now has not always been that way. And even though we were really young when we met, we went through this initial honeymoon phase that was really fun and full of oxytocin, the love hormone, and things were really working. And then very shortly thereafter, what I found is that I really started settling into needing to guard my heart and to be in a situation where I could make sure that I felt safe and protected. And what's interesting is through this journey, what I've seen is that I really had the personality to be very type A, in control, go-getter, get things done, needed to be in control, and just really felt like that's who I am as a woman. And a lot of it is. But I had no idea that the way I was showing up over 20 years, 4 kids later, having multiple businesses together, that we ended up more like roommates and business partners than truly lovers or people that we really didn't enjoy each other in a passionate relationship. It was more like, okay, kids, work, day-to-day stuff.
Right. Life got in the way of our relationship, basically, is what it was. I mean, we had an amazing, first 6 to 8 months. We were completely, as I call it, stupid in love, in high school. And I even had friends, just thought I was, crazy. But that's how we were. But it disappeared after about 6, 7 months or so. And we didn't know at the time. As a matter of fact, I was incredibly jealous and very protective, just completely in love. And it faded. It went away. And I remember telling people, well, don't worry. If they were telling me they had the same feelings, well, you'll get over it someday. It's just the honeymoon phase. You'll get over it. And that's what we thought was the case. And then 20-something years later, we were able to reignite that within us through this work. And, now we realize what that was. And that's really the basis that she's sharing, is a complete shift back to that now.
Wow. And one of the things I wanted to share is, even though, because there's a lot of people that are single or divorced or in a relationship that's been shorter than ours, and they wonder, well, how does this apply? And what we've seen is that there were things that were hidden from us. That was dynamics or patterns going on in our relationship that not only were sabotaging our passion, but keep single people stuck and single.
Yeah. Or in the same negative, repetitive relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And so the goals that we found that radically shifted our relationship is something that applies to anyone, whether, again, they're single, divorced, if they've been in a relationship for 1 month or 20 years. And we're just so thankful to come out on the other side and know what it takes to create that shift, regardless of where you're at, or even if you're single, so that you can actually attract the person that really deserves to have your heart, especially when it comes to, and again, the topic for this podcast is about how to become an irresistible woman. And even though there may be some guys listening to that, I want their hearts to prick up and go, whoa, okay, what is that for me with my lady? Or how do I find that kind of woman?
Right. Or how do I assist my woman in becoming irresistible? Because the men actually have a role in this as well. It's not just the women. And that's one of the interesting things. As Shannon went through her transformation, it altered me at a fundamental level in the way that I interacted with her and the way that I reached out to her. So many of the things that she used to demand for me to do, to compliment her and to, don't I look pretty? And I'm like, well, hell yes, but now that you asked me to do it, it becomes more of a challenge. So why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And so all those things that she yearned for before now naturally come out of me as before. It was almost like I withheld them because it's like she was winning if I gave her these things she demanded. So it was a very interesting dynamic, but we've learned so much about it.
And I want to point out, Rick, this is something that wasn't on our radar.
No.
We didn't go, our journey did not go, we didn't enter into this because we saw there was an issue. We were really, to be honest, silently like suffering and didn't know it. We didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't realize things were as dry, dead as they really were because we got caught up in life, being busy and somewhat numb. And when this started coming to our awareness and we had the opportunity where our journey began, and I want to just encourage the audience that's listening, is that, to be very honest, I had an extremely fixed mindset. And what I mean by that is what I heard really confronted me. It scared me because I didn't want to think, what do you mean I could have shown up in another way for the past 20 years and it would have altered my relationship with him and our passion and what I was demanding or wanting from him for so long? When I learned this, there was this sense of freedom and then this fear of like, oh my gosh, have I wasted all this time? And so I just want to encourage, I know some feelings can come up for a lot of people on wanting to be right, like wanting to protect their ego and know it's my guy's issue or know it's my girl's issue. And we're really here to say it's none of that.
No.
Yeah.
That's not where we're coming from.
This is really at its core is about showing up congruently to who it is that you really are in your soul. And so much of us, I mean, the work that we do is dependent upon that. We're really living in our heads about these stories about who it is that we believe that we are and how we need to show up and the ever-present need to be right and to make other people wrong. And then that is a kind of a core piece of how we start this journey into going into the next steps of what we discovered. This was a journey for us. There were a lot of bumps and bruises along the way once we were actually aware of this situation. And what fortunately we've been able to do is put a lot of these pieces together now to create a situation where this can be repeated in a much easier fashion for people through the work that we do.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to bring up some scars and about being congruent.
So in the essence of congruence and showing up as you are, there's a concept in Eastern cultures about, it's called samskaras. Mm-hmm. Really in the United States, we don't have, or in Western cultures, we really don't have a lot of talk or discussion or words around what this idea is. So it was interesting when we came across the samskara, because really what it defines is it's blocked energy. It's like an emotional charge that you have that usually was rooted in it can be an emotional pain, it can be a trauma, it can be a physical trauma.
It's an inner vow.
Or an inner vow that was made, like, I will never do this again. So let's say some kid, when you were 12 years old on the playground, punched you in the face or said something to hurt your feelings, or said something that really hurt you on the inside. You're just like, oh my gosh, that was really painful. And so you got this experience, this blocked energy within you, somewhere in your body that anchors. And if you don't express those emotions and live through those emotions and cry if you need to cry or get angry if you need to get angry, you just stuff those emotions, pretend they're not there. What you do is you put up a wall. You put up a wall to say, I'm never going to go near that experience again. And this becomes a rule in your life. This rule is to prevent you from ever experiencing this pain. Wow. Well, that's a samskara. And so now we have a rule that establishes, I'm never going to be hurt, so I don't experience this. And what happens is we build and build and build all these different experiences and walls to where that's how we show up in life. And that creates patterns that always lead us back to the same place. So that, from a very high level, that's basically the essence of samskara.
And what I wanted to add with that is, at the beginning of our journey, it's like I didn't know I had samskaras or patterns that were running, sabotaging what was possible for me as a woman, for me. And I want to make that clear too. A lot of people that are listening, I work with so many women that are quite honestly hacked off at their guy or at men, and they're just very much like, why does this need to be about him, or why does this need about giving him more sex, or something goes into about having to give, and the women are really upset, and I so get that because I was there. And what I want to let you know as I bring this up is, with the Samskaras, we're bringing things into your awareness that you didn't realize were operating. Okay. And that leads me into what we wanted to talk about is just some of the basics of some of the key teachings that opened our eyes to this is masculine and feminine energy. Okay. And understanding what they are at their core, just the attributes. And what's so beautiful about masculine and feminine energy and those attributes is there's not one that's right, one that's wrong. There's not one that's superior. And both men and women have these personality traits or energy types in them. So both men and women have masculine and feminine energy in them. However, typically at birth, you are either more masculine in your core or more feminine in your core, just naturally. And this has nothing to do with the sex of the child, it being male or female.
Yeah, there can be a masculine woman or a feminine man, but for the most part, you typically see feminine in women and masculine in men. That's not always the case, but for the most part it is.
Okay.
And what we're going to be sharing about a lot today is based on the assumption typically women are feminine in their core and men are masculine in their core. And I'll give a couple of attributes about the feminine. And again, these are really amazing strengths. For example, the feminine loves to take something that's a topic that's small, and then we make it really, really big and juicy. And we see all the details, and we also have the beautiful ability of having diffuse awareness, which means I can be thinking about picking up the kids from soccer. I can be thinking about needing to buy a dress because I've got to go to an event. I can think about a coaching call I need to be on, and I've got another 10 things going all at the same time. That drives me crazy.
The whole thought of it drives me crazy.
Wow.
And so women also emotionally have a tendency to be more open, free, vulnerable, and wild, untamed, unpredictable. Also, one of the beautiful things about women is that they're in their radiance, in their essence, when they're open and when they can receive, and they really light up with praise, with movement, like actually dancing, feminine movement. Mm-hmm. So I just see like just this wild, beautiful thing, and that would be a great description of the feminine. And especially for men, this is what women a lot of times don't understand, is that the feminine essence for a man is like in a beautiful way, like his refuge. Like he's like, I look at her energy and all of this striving and everything that I have when I'm with her, I lose myself because she's like Disney World. She's like a playground in being when I'm with her. And so that's what we as women, or the feminine essence, has an opportunity to bring as a dynamic. But you want to talk about the masculine?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I mean, that, as she describes that was not the woman that I was married to for 20 plus years.
You know what I wanted to ask when you were talking about that before? What impact did other people have on both of your lives? Specifically Shannon, did other people have an impact on kind of guiding you down that road to become that type A, do you feel like there was some environmental impact on you that kind of pushed you in that direction?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to share is it can be, got a little bit of feedback. It can be, it can come from anything like upbringing. It can come, and we're going to be addressing a little bit of that in just a second. But it can come from upbringing, it can be from stresses, it can be also how you were loved or how you were not loved. And so we're going to be identifying that pretty soon. But I just want you to know that for the masculine or the feminine essence, your core, it was rewarded or punished growing up in any kind of an environment. It could be your caretakers, it could be parents, it could have been the friendships you were around, it could be the environment supported this or didn't support that.
It can be the people that you really wanted to be like, or that you wanted to receive love or connection or affirmation through.
So we got messages that kind of guided us down these different paths.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then that's when we anchor in. Our mental anchors in. This is how I want to be, and your body may be saying, "Oh no, I want to do something else." Well, as patterns established, then a decision is made and a samskara is created.
Okay.
And so that's that. But as far as the masculine is concerned, like I said, Shannon, that was not the feminine energy that I was exposed to for so long.
No.
I mean, it was really, her energy was really more masculine in the sense of very task-oriented, very focused, very closed in the sense of I'm not open and free. You know, one of our big things for so long was, you know, you're always trying to control me, and you don't have a lighthearted spirit. It's like you want to have fun. I mean, I want to have fun and this, but she was always so serious, you know, so focused. And so that was one of the things that came up to me. But, you know, the masculine is focused. We're decisive. We're competitive. We control. We make big things into small things. To solve problems, we take all these possibilities and take them down to the most central basic pieces so that we can solve that problem. Mm-hmm. That's really what we want to do. We want to fix things. Yeah. We want to fix things. We want to compete. We want to strive. We want to, you know, just conquer. That's really the masculine energy.
And you're great at protecting.
And we're great at protecting as well. That's what we want to do. We want to protect, especially our feminine. Yeah. And so that really was what drove us to so much friction, even though we didn't understand it at the time. We really had a household with two masculine energies. Yeah. And we'll get into
not knowing it.
We'll get into the dynamics of this later, but that was really what led to so much pain in our lives. Is like I was out in the world, you know, striving and conquering and competing. I played, you know, soccer. I do all these different things, you know, regularly in business, and so I'm out conquering and fighting and, you know, slaying the dragons, you know, so to speak, everywhere. When I come home, I don't want to do that. Right. I want to have a refuge. I want to be at peace at home. But what would happen when I come home is we're fighting and, you know, doing the exact same thing. I've got another. In essence, it was like a masculine energy in my home that we were having to compete and fight all the time, and so there literally was no place for me to be able to just chill. And that's what ultimately would drive us out into the world, into business, or into other places, because that's where we feel like we can win and we can fix things. Because when we're competing with this energy in the home, it really creates an environment where we don't know what's going on. It drives us nuts. And so, fortunately, this came into our awareness through a lot of the work that we've done, and you know, now we understand that, and that's part of the reason why we're bringing this message.
I have a great question at this point in the talk.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about a lot of my female friends who have, you know, fallen into this same trap and do have a lot of the same complaints. And if they're single, they're saying that they can't find any men, you know, they're not attracting the right men. And if they're married, they're saying, but he doesn't do any of these things. He's not focused. He's not task oriented. He's not protecting me. He's not man enough. So I think a lot of the women who are listening to this would say, well, sure, that's easy for you to say, Shannon, because Dan stayed in his masculine. He didn't give up and kind of flip on you and become like mushy and get neutered, as we talk about. So how can we give those women hope, the ones that are saying, but there are no more men left. It's a different age now. We're in an age where there are no more men.
Let me interject something. I know that question was for Shannon, but you stated everything as completely appropriate. You know, and you said something about I was protecting her, or she needed to be protected. But the point was that woman, that version of Shannon, did not need protecting.
Okay.
That's one of the things that's really come into our awareness since. I mean, the shift that she's gone through has completely transformed who I am and how I show up in life and in this relationship. Because in the past, I was, you know, after 20 years of getting kicked in the balls, you get to a point of really just becoming more feminine in the sense of how you show up in your relationship. You're like,
so you were ground down.
That's right. It's not worth the fight anymore.
But then in business, you could go and
so in business, I can still go out and you know and kick ass and do some amazing things. But the problem is at home, it's like it's not worth the fight.
Wow.
And so I come home and I'm like, okay, yeah. It's like, so she's going to rule the roost at home. Yep. Now, if it really boils down to a really major decision or something, you know, life transformative for the family, I would definitely step up. Yeah. But for the most part, become very passive. Yeah. And that we're going to get into the types of relationships in a little bit. This is really key to go into. Yep. We were shifting into that, but I was very much resisting it. Some men will not do that eventually. It depends on the programming that they've had, but they will stay in the feminine much more. And that creates a different type of relationship. But the amazing, the smile. The amazing thing.
I'm laughing too, because I think this is what you're saying right now. there is not a relationship that I can think of that is not struggling with some parts of this, and even sometimes overly masculine or overly feminine energies that are like,
Right.
people are overcompensating. So
Right.
I can't think of anyone that's not struggling with this.
Well, Rick, one of the things we didn't say about the masculine and feminine is in order for there to be chemistry or passion, it's like having a car battery. You got to have a negative and a positive for there to be juice.
Wow.
There has to be
Right.
a masculine and a feminine. So, and we're not pointing, again, this is not about being right. This is not about pointing blame. So I want you to see we're kind of coming full circle. There has to be a masculine and a feminine, not a feminine, not a masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Those relationships will not have the opposites attracting to pull them to create the passion and the juice.
They'll repel
They
each other.
repel.
Wow.
They repel. And then it comes back to this. And this is really what our mission is, and where we're going with this is the thing. What happened with me is that for over 30 years, I lived incongruent, unknowingly, thinking I was truly masculine in my core, not even knowing that there was such a thing as there was truly a feminine core. And what I did is I covered it with a masculine mask to protect myself emotionally. And we're about to talk about masculine mask in a minute. But I just wanted to make that clear, is that the recipe for having a sustainable, lasting passion relationship is that there's going to be a masculine and a feminine to create the passion. And let me also say, the other basis for a dynamite relationship is that there's some core beliefs and values and interests or something that pulls you two together where you have some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and communication.
yes. So that common ground creates this good central hub, but the masculine and feminine is what creates the juice and the passion.
Right.
Okay.
Because frankly, where we were for 20 years, there was no sexual passion. There really was. I mean, it was really just more of a chore, something that needed to be done.
Yeah.
A lot of the families that we work with and the couples that we work with, we've gone through some sexless, marriages and relationships where there was just absolutely, they gave up. There was no need because there was no polarity. There was no attraction between the two. It was simple repelling. Whether it was
I can think of people, who are saying, I'm just not interested anymore. We did, there's just,
and that's understandable.
They totally give up.
That's understandable.
And they think it's all because of just, like either being with the person too long or, that it's something they did or the other one did. And it's just blame. Well, it's a mess.
That's one of the greatest gifts that we received through this whole journey, Rick, is the ability to understand how we got here, and that you can go from passion and great intimacy and love, even though we were kids, to a wasteland of just saying, this is who we are, and eventually just getting really fed up and kind of sick of it. At least that's where I was. Shannon was a little bit more comfortable with it. It wasn't as much in her awareness, to being our eyes being opened and unveiled to the point of saying, wow, this is what was going on, given some tools and experiences to radically shift all of that, and then now have the incredible passion after 20 years of this. So no matter how many people are out there saying this is who we are and this is the life we have to live, it's not true.
Yeah.
There's a story going on. There are samskaras that create that belief that are obstructing their ability to see it.
So the good news is there's no life sentence in a
No.
relationship.
No. And that's why being open-minded to look at yourself as a new possibility, being able to look at him as a new possibility, and not having to be so fixed of, oh, he's always that way, and I'm always this way.
Yep.
And it takes a little being open to, are you open to seeing something in a new way? Because if you're not, honestly, you're sunk.
And the ability to say, you know what, I can be wrong. That really is at the core of what we do. If somebody can't be willing to look at something new in a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset, they can't say, I'm wrong, then they're going to be, the most powerful force in the universe, as Tony Robbins says, is the need of an identity to maintain itself.
Yeah.
And so really that's at the core of what we work on, is the ability to say, maybe I can be a different person. Maybe these decisions and these samskaras that I don't even know are there are creating a filter that I view life through. And until I can remove that filter, I can't really see her for the possibilities that she has. and the possibilities that she can be, as my spouse, and then that allows me to shift. But if you're constantly defending that identity, you're always making everyone else around you wrong.
Yeah. Now, you said something so powerful there. Let's just repeat that again, because I think that's a key point here. Just tell us that Tony Robbins quote again, because I think this is one of the things that is going to wake the audience up, because a lot of people listening and watching are identifying with who they think they are or who they've been this whole time. And if they think that's good and that's, preferable, and the other one is either growing, changing, stagnating, going backwards, and they're hanging on for dear life to this persona. So tell us that again.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical to what we do. It's the most powerful force in the universe is the need for an identity to maintain or preserve itself.
Wow.
And here's the funny thing, is we do a full teaching on samskaras. I mean, we spend a lot of time on this in the retreats that we do and working with people to begin, and we give them some experiences to understand the power of these samskaras, which are beliefs that may have even predated their ability to cognitively recognize them.
Yeah.
They're subconscious. And these samskaras, if you look up the definition of a samskara, it'll blow your mind. It basically says it is a force within you. There's an unblocked, it's a blocked energy place that establishes your thoughts, beliefs, and future decisions. All of your future decisions are based on something in the past, which incidentally, the crazy thing about it is a lot of those experiences were negative experiences. Yeah. So a lot of your identity and the way that you live life is based upon the worst experiences of your life. It's the craziest thing. But until you have the ability to question your identity and question why it is that you do what you do, you're going to be completely blocked to that possibility, which doesn't allow you to show up in a different way.
And to give an example of that, Rick, so for over 20 years, I did not ever feel desired by him. I did not consider myself beautiful or sexy or desirable. I had no real desire or pull towards him. I did not see him as my hero at all. And I felt so responsible, like I needed to do everything pretty much on my own. And frankly, I wanted it that way.
And I had felt that and tried to do everything that I could to be those things. But at the same time, I just kept getting pushed back.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that after this shift in what we guide people through, after this shift, literally, I have more peace, less stress, the ability to open and receive from him, which in turn makes it where he wants to protect me.
Right.
He does desire me. The things that I was wanting to demand from him before, as far as compliments and attention and time, he gives to me now effortlessly, and I don't have to even request it.
I want to do that. I'm attracted to her. We have that polarity, and her ability to receive that is present, whereas before it wasn't.
And the other thing for the men that are listening, and this will be music to their ears, and for some women too, and they're going to be thinking, is that really possible? I went from my body being really numb and desiring him to where now my body desires him sexually, emotionally, intimately for my pleasure, not to check it off a freaking list so I can have him out of my hair.
Which really shifts everything in the relationship. Because I mean, that's the fact that she desires me, whereas before it was really just check off the list, get that over with because he needs it.
Yep. I
don't want to do this, but she will. And thankfully, she was a wife that actually would do that. There are many that we've come into, they're just like, well, that's your problem.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, one of the things for time's sake, we need to
get into proceed with it.
Well, we want to briefly go over something that we've created, and we want to make available to the audience as well. We've created a quiz or a relationship profile analysis that lets you know there's 4 different types of relationships based on the combination of masculine and feminine core energy.
Okay.
And we're going to end up needing to teach a little bit about what's possible. And we're not going to have time to go into all the details. We're going to give a quick highlight of what they are. And then we can make the quiz available to the audience so that they, regardless if it's the man or the woman, they'll know where their relationship is. So one person, not both, have to take the quiz.
Okay.
So the first type, we call that type 1, is what we were for over 20 years where you've got a masculine and a masculine energy.
And it's quite prevalent in our society.
Yes.
For the most part, the majority of relationships seem to be showing up this way, at least in our environment, the work that we're doing with people.
So it sounds like this is, it's kind of like a period of history, certainly, where if you look at history, women are becoming more independent, so certainly thinking that they need to take on this role more and more often, especially in the United States. So this is why this is so common today.
Yes,
that's correct.
They have women today, especially the women that are single moms or that are single, they feel a tremendous amount of responsibility and pressure. And, a woman might be saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm masculine or feminine in my core. When I'm listening to the attributes of the masculine, I can so relate. So does that mean I am or am not? And I went through that too, Rick. Like, I really thought I was masculine in my core, to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
And again, that's where you have to be open to seeing something in a new way. And this would be a great litmus test. If you feel like you are sick and tired of feeling like you have all this responsibility, and when you do feel responsibility as a woman, if it makes you stressed, pissy, if it shuts you down, if it totally takes away from your sex drive, that's your big red flag right there, that you need to consider you're maybe feminine in your core with a masculine mask to get through the freaking day or the years.
Yeah.
And so,
because you're not living congruently. When you're not living congruently, you are stressed out.
yes.
Yeah.
So that is a real good example of a masculine-masculine relationship. Again, we're making the assumption men are masculine in their core, women are feminine in their core. So if we say masculine, we're talking about a man that's congruent in his core energy being masculine, and a woman that doesn't feel the freedom to be in her feminine core, so she puts on a masculine mask in order to show up in life, to get things done, to protect herself.
Yeah.
And this relationship, just like we don't have to go over it a lot, it's what we've already talked about. It's an example of what we lived through, where there's going to be competition, fighting, no passion or polarity or juice between them at all.
Fireworks.
Okay.
Yes.
Not good ones.
So that's type 1.
That's type 1.
Yeah.
And what we have is type 2. You want to explain type 2?
Yeah, type 2 is basically feminine. And so you have a feminine woman that's in her core, but you have a guy that shows up, he's masculine, but he has a feminine mask on. And this can be due to the way that he was brought up. In order for him to receive love from his mom or from his father, if he had a really strong, overbearing father, then he can be programmed into, I need to be good, I need to be quiet, I just need to be a good boy. I need to be, quiet and sincere and sweet and not cause a fuss, right? Now, if he has a mother that's sometimes a single mom will raise the son, because if she's in a masculine mask, she is going to create a child, a boy that will raise up. In order to have polarity with him, he needs to be feminine because she's showing up as a masculine energy. So he needs to be feminine to relate and to be loved and to, this is who I need to be in order to receive love from mama. Okay. And so I'm going to be sweet and kind. Well, they grow up through life that way. And through different situations and samskaras being created, it anchors that in. Mm-hmm. And so that can be great. The issue is whenever they meet a woman, they're going to have a great relationship because they're like, oh, he's my buddy, he's my girlfriend, he's so sensitive, he's so open. And women love these guys because it's like a girlfriend. Yep. It's like a boy that is a girlfriend. And so they are attracted to these guys and they can have a great relationship. The problem is, in the long run, it doesn't sustain because there is not masculine-feminine polarity. Okay. So after the oxytocin wears off, all of a sudden, you got no passion, no polarity,
it's feminine.
And they repel. And the women they don't respect them at all because they never step up. They'll never make a decision. They'll never actually do what's required to show up in the relationship or to be the leader. And they so desperately yearn and need that. We had a couple that we worked with not long ago that was the perfect picture of this beautiful feminine woman, and this man had a fear of the feminine and was raised to be feminine by his parents. We don't have time to go into the story, but the pain that this woman was in was so severe because she desperately needed him to step up and own her and protect her, and he couldn't do it. Okay. And so that's feminine.
All right.
And type 3?
Yes. Type 3 is when both people are wearing masks.
Wow.
It gets confusing.
Yes. So that's when the guy is showing up more in a feminine quality or attribute, and the woman showing up more in a masculine. And what's interesting at first glance is you think, well, doesn't that work?
And
you
it
have
can.
a masculine
It
and feminine.
can work.
And it actually can work because you truly have the opposites going. This is the issue though, Rick. They're both incongruent with their core nature and what they really want. So you'll hear this woman, and it's so interesting because I've been around these ladies, and especially if you're around ladies in their mid-50s and 60s, you'll hear them be like they may have their husband whipped, right? Like he's neutered, right? But then she'll see, like, watch Superman or like Thor will come on, and she's like,
They start blushing. And
oh my! And all of a sudden they have like this like sexual energy as far as like, I wish your daddy was like that, or something like that. And you're like, oh, okay. All of a sudden we're seeing that there's something there. And the same thing for a man, that even though he might have been in his feminine, a masculine, he's got a masculine core with a feminine mask on, even though he may seem neutered, a refreshing feminine woman. Free, feminine, just, she's not manipulating, she's not controlling anything, walks by and he's just like, oh, there goes my refuge. I mean, he's just like, I just want to spend time with that. And this has not necessarily anything to do with sexual energy. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about she's just a breath of fresh air to him.
Because she's happy.
She's happy.
And a guy thinks, wow, look how happy she is. If she's that happy by herself, just think what I could do with her.
Yep.
That's what ignites the masculine about the feminine. It's free. But in the type 3 relationship is really interesting, because what we talked about earlier, and your question really was, will you be able to maintain that masculine presence? And there's women that think, well, my husband's not like that. Well, guess what? He probably was.
Originally.
So what happens in time? In the type 1 masculine relationship, where there's all this headbutting, depending on the blueprints of the people, they're either going to blow up and get a divorce and leave each other, or have an affair because they can't stand it anymore. Or what's going to happen, if they really believe that they're not supposed to get a divorce, or we're doing it for the kids, or we're doing it for business, or whatever, they will eventually probably shift down into type 3, because it's a lower energy state. There's polarity there. It's not real polarity, but there's not all the contention and fighting that there is in type 1.
Makes
so
sense.
they'll morph from type 1 into type 3, which is exactly what you pointed out.
Yep.
That's really I was fighting that fight, and we were shifting into type 3 in our relationship, and it didn't set well with me. And so I knew that it wasn't going to last long term. Fortunately, we weren't looking for this, but we found it, and it saved our relationship.
Boy, that sounds... I mean, everything you're saying, I have names, experiences, everything popping into my head. It's just resonating on such a deep level. I mean, this is just good stuff.
All right, so let's run to type 4.
Okay, and type 4 is the good stuff. That's where both parties are living congruent. The man is in the masculine, the woman's in the feminine, and there's polarity, there's juice, and this is the kind of relationship that long-term, where the honeymoon, it never has to end.
It doesn't end.
It doesn't.
Everybody knows a couple like this. I mean, well, I assume that you do. I mean, we got them, and they're so rare, but you just look at them and you go, they've got everything together. Man, that is so cool. They're successful. They're happy. Even if they don't make a lot of money, they're happy. Yeah. And they love each other. These are the couples that have been together for 30, 40 years that are still holding hands and loving on each other. And you look at them at the restaurant and you think they're having an affair. They both have
100%.
They both have wedding rings on. And so
last night we came out of a restaurant, and my wife drives. So we come out, and so I'm getting into the passenger side. My son, my 15-year-old, is on her side. So I see him walk past her door. I say, "Get your mother's door." And there's a car next to us with the window open with 2 women inside. And we get in the car, and after we get in, I said, they definitely think I'm the new boyfriend. Because I'm telling the boy to open his mother's door.
Yeah.
No father would be telling him that. He can't possibly be the father of those kids.
Right.
Because the way I said it, I was like, get your mother's door.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, if I would have said, get mommy's door, they probably would have said, he's the husband. But because I said, get your mother's door, I sounded like the boyfriend.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm so glad you said that, Rick. It just made my heart melt, because one of the things that I know we're wrapping up what the type 4 is, and type 4 again is the ones that work.
Yeah,
okay, everybody's congruent. And what I wanted to say is that all 4 of these types of relationships have a huge impact on our kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I know we're maybe talking to some women here that are single moms or dads, single parents, or people that want to have children in the future. Because a lot of times when we're working with people, they're like, well, Shannon, I'm single. I don't have kids yet. Why would working with you help me? And I'm like, do you ever want to have kids? Or are you ever around children? Or do you have anyone that is children in your lineage?
Yeah.
Because all of this energetic work affects everyone,
100%.
everyone that they come into contact with, because your sons and daughters will be reacting based on how the mom and the dad show up, and then who they're around, the relationships that they see and want to model. So I'm really glad that you said that about your son, because we've seen radical shifts in our own kids, and
then the kids of the people we work with.
Yes.
Because they're going to model those relationships and patterns. They're going to develop the same opinions of, this is how I have to be. For a young girl to say, I need to be this to be safe and not to be hurt, because my mommy said you get hurt if you open up. Yeah. And so that's how they grow up. But that's where masculine mass often starts.
Well, one of the first things that I talk about when I counsel and mentor and coach men, women, couples, whatever, is if you have kids, they're watching you and they're learning from your example. And so one of the most important reasons to do this after yourself is so these young people can have a good example of what a great relationship looks like, what it looks like to work on yourself in your relationship, because that's important. And I've been telling my kids, I have 2 sons, I've been telling them since they were born, before I even had the marriage boss, this is how you operate as a man in the world. And, and it's challenging today, because let's face it, it's almost like we're a dying species in some way. And that whole masculine feminine thing and everything you've talked about today is something that we have to resurrect in some cases, remind people of, teach of in the first place, because some people have never been exposed to this stuff. They kind of think it, but for whatever reason, sometimes they're repelled, sometimes it's environmental, as we said. But one of the main reasons I wanted to do this work, I love people and I love couples and adults, but I love kids, and I think kids need good examples. And so when I was very young, I remember somebody saying, we don't have enough apprenticeship anymore. And so this is one of the best things, teaching kids how to make horseshoes and sew leather and do all that stuff and plant crops is important. But the apprenticeship of love and relationships and families is what my whole life and mission is about. So it's good stuff.
Totally agree. When you said that, it reminds me of, when I have the opportunity to get to start working with a woman, and she may be coming to me because her relationship stinks, or her heart's broken, or she thinks her guy's a jerk, And it's so beautiful, because when I'm sitting here seeing her talk, I see through her, I see her guy, I see her children, I see her future, sons and daughters-in-laws and her grandchildren. That's what we're really going after. Is it starts with one person. And that's what I want to encourage, especially the women that are listening to this. Her shift can shift everything.
And that sounds really heavy too when she goes through that and says that, because there's there's all these consequences. There's all that's done. The simple fact is that the work that we are doing, and we'll get into this in a couple of seconds, we're going to have to kind of wrap this up a little bit, but the work that we're doing is deep. It's at an emotional level. It's at an energetic level. It's integrating samskaras and obliterating these old stories that have created patterns in life. This is through some fascinating work and some amazing things and people that we've been exposed to, energetic work dealing with emotions. And when you resolve and you integrate and melt all those belief stories away, all of a sudden you completely show up in a different way. The crazy thing is that doesn't just stop with you. It affects everyone around you, including your spouse. It affects you in your business. We see great results in people's businesses just as a result of this work. But it also filters down through the kids and the children and the grandchildren. We've seen it over and over. And so it sounds a little heavy when she says that, unless you understand the context of this work.
Well, and I also share that to get leverage on people. Honestly, because it's like so many people are silently suffering, or their life is big enough. There's enough money, there's enough pleasure, there's enough fast-paced travel, kids, busyness, that they postpone addressing something that is really the nearest and dearest to their heart, because there's pain there, or they don't know what to do. I want them to say, where are you going to be in 10 years if you don't do anything and you let a future just default into itself?
Well, we've also learned how to live without it. We've surrounded ourselves with people not only in our neighborhoods or in our jobs, but in the media that say, ball and chain, marriage is jail, I'm stuck with it, I can't get out, it's a prison. And so we've conditioned ourselves to label relationships as negative. And it's, I'm dealing with it. Hey, listen, it's the wife, the husband, we need to be responsible if we want something better. And you know what? Everyone who's listening and watching today, you have a gift in front of you. You have an opportunity to connect with these two amazing people. It's up to you. You got to make the call, click on the button, check out their email, talk to them, and let's. I always like to say this on this show. You now have permission to have a better life, and to use the information we're bringing you to make yourself better and to make your world and your days better. And believe me, I can tell you it works, because my life is awesome every day. So, and I'm doing this work, and I know you guys are too. And we know what it's like when it's not so good and it's dark.
Yes.
And it's better when it's good and it's bright.
Yeah.
Well, you want to give them some practical tips and things that they can use moving forward?
Yes. A few quick steps is one of the things that we've seen for lasting results around relationship is really, like, the first thing is just creating awareness, which we're doing right now. And at our retreats and private getaways or coaching, we do more of that. But it starts with just awareness. Are you open? Then the next thing would be truly integrating samskaras, these energetic blocks that are subconscious. And we do energy work in order to create that. And then the next step would be anchoring in a new identity. Like the person that you're committed to being, once the energetic blocks are out of the way, the slate is clean, no more excuses. You have the freedom to run and go and be that new person. There's literally nothing holding you back. Mm-hmm. So that's why we say we do that in 3 steps. And then to serve the audience and give you some practical tips before we leave. And I'll speak to the women first. In order to, if you want to take some steps into cultivating your essence as a woman, here's a few little things that you could do. Look for little things that allow you to slow down, which, that may sound like a bad word to even say, slow down. But it's like add a few minutes onto your walk or commute to work, drive a little slower, put on your favorite radio station, and really be there and enjoy it. Instead of
and feel it.
And feel it. Yeah. Truly feel. So slowing down, smelling the roses, taking that extra 5-minute bubble bath, put on candles. I love sleeping with blankets. I have blankets with me all the time that I love the touch. So that just brings out the feminine essence. Also dancing, any kind of dance for a woman.
It can just be simple, just movement, not even real dance.
Right. It doesn't have to be full-blown dance, but some kind of feminine movement will totally open a woman up. And also, I would just say, look for little things that anchor in the feminine woman she wants to be. For example, from bracelets to jewelry to the music she listens to. I have Pandora radio stations that have all different types of personalities on them. So when I want to shift into a certain personality, whether it be fun or more quiet and restful, peaceful versus sassy versus sexy versus feisty, I've got radio stations for all those personalities. Okay. So that's just a few suggestions for the woman.
Yeah, and for men, as far as, men, a lot of times, especially if you're dealing with a masculine woman, the thing that really ignites and brings out the feminine in them is praise. There are 2 things that really bring out the feminine. One is praise and the other is movement. She can do the movement, but the man's job is to help bring out the praise. That was one of the crazy things. When you're masculine, the last thing you want to do is praise them for these things. But I guarantee you, if you do it, they will soften. There's also presence that we as men need to give our women. No matter how much they're kicking us in the balls or how much they're fighting with us, if that's just holding presence and staying there and not walking away is one of the critical things. The crazy thing is that men, when we're fighting with these masculine women, we want to physically hurt them because that's what we do. Men fight. But when you're faced with a masculine energy in a woman, you want to fight her, but you can't because that would be, we don't hurt women physically. So we walk away to protect them. And that just ticks them off because they're like, well, I knew he wasn't enough of a man to stand here and to take this and to deal with
Hear it all the time.
So we have to be present with them even when we want to walk away. That's one of the critical pieces to giving her a safe place to open up and be vulnerable, because that gives us staying present, gives them the ability to be open and real without having to harden and stand up when we walk away. So
when you guys stand and when we are kicking you in the balls and when we're really challenging you, when you guys stand and stay there and give us your presence in a calm way of, I love you, I'm here, I don't understand you right now, I want to understand you, that just communicates that you want to get where we're coming from, and that means the world to a woman is being understood. So it really makes a huge difference in doing this. So posture for a man, it's amazing in what it lights up in a woman.
Wow.
So
and one last jewel I want to share before we go is when we talk about integrating samskaras, there's one little key that we can give to people. I mean, it is a process that we use, but it is a critical step. And people can do some of this on their own if they're willing to. Just literally what they need to do is get in a quiet place where there's not a lot of distractions. And usually if you're really upset about something, or you're angry, you're scared, you're sad, or whatever, typically you're going to have some place in your body that you feel that. It's really, we don't have emotions in our head, we have them in our body. Our head just has a tendency to mask them. So whenever you have a physical symptom, maybe a chronic ailment, literally you can just put your hands on that place and hold that place, close your eyes and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and just do that quietly for an extended period of time. And don't be surprised if all kinds of amazing emotions come out.
Wow.
And so, but you got to do that in an undistracted place. Do not make the place wrong. Just go in kind of in a curious way to explore those feelings and try to connect to that. And literally that is integrating those samskaras. So just people, don't be afraid to try that.
Good stuff. Thank you. So how can people in the audience who are listening and watching work with you too?
Yes, great. Well, we have a few different ways that can happen. We actually have live events where we have ladies retreats here actually at our retreat home. We may have them in different locations in the future. And we have 3 of those coming up right now, but we have them about every 2 months. Right now we have one planned for June, we have one planned for August, and then one in October. And that is usually a maximum of about 15 women that we take and we dive deep. It's about 3 days long. Okay. And all of what we're talking about totally gets discussed and integrated, and it's extremely hands-on and experiential and fun.
Wow.
And fun.
Cool.
And
you guys are in Texas, right?
We're in Texas. Okay. Yes, we are. Right. And then the other way is that we do the same thing. If someone would rather have more privacy, they can work with us one-on-one and come for a 2-day getaway. So that's just one-on-one. They can bring their husband or their wife, and we can do that with couples. So that's a private getaway.
That's Extreme Makeover Relationship Edition.
Cool.
Yes.
Good stuff.
And then
do you do that thing with do you have like the old, with the way they looked, and then you open that up, and then there they are behind there?
Yes. You wouldn't believe.
Like the reveal?
It's true story.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
And then I do one-on-one coaching as well, and then I can do all of that online, and we do it virtually, which is great. Makes it really flexible.
Cool.
So there's all kinds of ways.
Also, we do the private getaways. We do either with women or also with couples together. So it just depends on the situation.
Right.
Cool.
In the future, we're going to be having online products, and then we've got the relationship profile quiz, so we can tell you what your relationship type is, and they can just send us an email.
Should we send people to? I know you have a link which we're going to just mention, but it'll also be in the show notes, and that is shannonrsmith.com/commit. That's to apply for any of your coaching stuff.
Right.
And then we've got the website shannonrsmith.com. And where can they get this quiz?
It's going to be on the website. It's
Okay.
to be launched within the next week or so.
All right, good.
So it's coming out, but they can shoot us an email. They're up
we
on the
can send
website.
it to them in the meantime.
All right, cool.
So we have that coming out. We're also going to be launching an app that has a lot of great material in it. The quiz will be a part of that, and so it's going to be cool.
Awesome. So you guys have a lot of great stuff, and really very much needed and rewarding work. So I really appreciate having you guys on. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right,
Rick. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Dan.